On this Friday's episode of Travelin' Young, we're going to talk about our 20th anniversary trip to Iceland.
And we're going to show you some waterfalls.
And glaciers.
And some waterfalls.
And some black beaches.
And some waterfalls.
And camper van life.
Oh, you know what? There were also some waterfalls.
There were lots of waterfalls.
More than I've ever seen in my entire life. Let's show you. We're the Youngs.
We've spent our lives traveling the world.
And in 2018, we moved from
Chicago, Illinois to
Copenhagen, Denmark.
Now we want to share with you
how our new lives abroad
is keeping us young.
Keeping us young.
Are helping to keep us young. All right, welcome to this Friday's episode of Travelin' Young and our trip to Iceland.
Yes.
First, before we talk about our itinerary, we want to talk about some practicals of going to Iceland.
Yeah, and one of the first things is, when do you go? Some people have gone in wintertime. We went in the summer, and I actually really liked going in summer. We had tons of sunlight. There was so much to see, so it was great to be able to see it throughout the day. And I really liked going in summer.
Yeah, it was a little chilly, so I can imagine how cold it is in the wintertime.
It's super green, though.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Another big debate is, what do you do? Do you stay in hotels or do what we did? We stayed in a camper van. What's cool about a camper van is you don't have to worry about checking in and out of hotels. You're basically on the go. But not only are you taking your bed with you, but you're also taking your kitchen with you.
Yeah.
It was so nice not having to find places to eat. We'd go in like a hike and then we'd come back and sit in the van and make lunch all right there. It was super easy and convenient.
So convenient.
And it was much cheaper because we were able to buy food at the grocery store.
Yeah. The next biggest question that we get is cost. I think if you're coming to Iceland from someplace like the US, the cost is going to be probably pretty shocking. But we were coming from Denmark, so for us it wasn't too much more expensive. Fresh meat was definitely extremely expensive, so we tried not to eat that very often. But for us, having lived in Denmark for a while, it wasn't that bad.
Yeah, I didn't think it was too bad.
Yeah.
And we had a lot of peanut butter and jelly and sandwiches.
Lots of peanut butter and jelly.
Although Danes, I don't know what that is, but yes, peanut butter and jelly. Another point is, when you're traveling and planning, do not underestimate the time it takes to see things. Because you'll see when we walk through the itinerary later that there's days we only saw maybe 2 or 3 things, but that's because we'd hike for like an hour and a half or 2 hours, then we'd rest for a little after and have lunch in the van. And so a lot of the, none of the things are right next to the highway. And there's some things we skipped, like the plane crash, because we're like, oh, that's gonna take us like 3 hours to go see, and we'd rather do something else. So never underestimate the time it takes to park, hike, and go somewhere, and the amount of time you're gonna wanna spend there, because you want to get the most out of everything you see.
Invest in really good hiking shoes, because you'll need them.
Yeah.
Driving time is another issue. It does take a while to drive from one place to the next, so make sure that you put in time to your trip for that. Because things aren't right next to each other. Like Josh said, you know, oftentimes we'd have to park someplace and then walk, so you've got to add that in too. But things aren't close together, and coming from the US, we're kind of used to that, but
and the roads you're like on small roads, so Google Maps is not fully accurate. Add 20% to what it says getting to places. The next thing is, I flew a drone in a lot of places, so you're gonna see some drone footage, but I want to make sure people know we were there last year, so it's possible drone rules have changed since then, but I followed all the rules. And when I made my itinerary, I specifically researched and made notes on places I could fly the drone and could not fly the drone, so that I could also maximize my drone opportunities each day, because I really wanted to fly the drone. But there's a lot of places you can't. National parks, you can't. There's a lot of places you can't. So be aware and don't disrupt other people. I was super careful and made sure to follow the rules, but I did get some cool drone stuff because we were in some isolated places. We hiked for a while. We were the only ones there. It was super cool. Yeah.
And the last piece of advice we have is just take time to relax. You can go all day and see all these super cool things, and I think you just go, and then you get to the end of the day and you realize you're completely exhausted. So especially if you do something like a glacier hike, that is going to wipe you out. So make sure to take time and rest, and don't overdo it, because you're going to wake up the next day super sore and super tired, and it's just not going to be an enjoyable experience.
Because we had the camper van, there were days when we took naps in grocery store parking lots.
Yeah, there were lots of naps.
And because of the endless sunlight being there in the summer, it was hard to sleep at night, so there were naps and relaxing in the middle of the day, which we also make sure to factor in as we traveled. So that's just some important practicals we want to mention as part of planning a trip to Iceland. But now we're going to walk through day by day, showing you exactly what we did. And just full disclosure, we did all this stuff and shot this footage before we had the channel. Yeah. So you don't really see us talk. Yeah. Because that was before we talked on camera. So you're going to see a lot of beautiful things, which frankly speak for itself. Yeah. And let's begin with, real fast. We flew in one night and then basically stayed at a hotel and immediately went to bed. So what this is going to be is 8 days of full days. I'm not going to count the first day when we flew in or the last day that we flew early in the morning. So our first full day starts now. We basically stuck to a route that a lot of people do when they just do day trips from Reykjavík or maybe short trips from Reykjavík. I'm not going to try to say, by the way, the names of all these places, but in total we spent a couple hours driving, and our first stop was this crater, which was really neat. We were trying to get our kind of legs under us on how to use the camera, what we're going to shoot, the weather, and it was really cool to check out. I hadn't seen very many craters. We didn't hike down to the bottom, but it was cool to walk around. Then we visited the Geysir, which I'd actually never seen a geyser before, and there's multiple ones there. And we walked around the compound and got to stick around and see that erupt. And then these falls, the Gullfoss Falls, which were just insane. We walked all the way around and basically got soaked because we got so close, but I was just blown away. This was absolutely gorgeous and one of the coolest parts of the day. But then we had to find our very first campsite because this was our first night camping, and I threw the drone up in the air, and this is basically the view from the air of the first place that we camped on our very first day in Iceland.
That was our day one. It was super jam-packed, but that's kind of how we travel. We always do a million things in the first day. I really loved seeing the geyser. That was my first time seeing a geyser too, but the Gullfoss Falls was just absolutely stunning. We've seen lots of waterfalls all over, and that is just one of the most beautiful falls I think I've ever seen. My favorite part though of the day was when we did end up at the campsite and Josh threw the drone up and we got that just beautiful, beautiful landscape view of the geyser and that park out in the distance with the sun shining through the clouds just in that one spot. It was just really kind of magical. So I thought it was a great first day. But the next day, we did even more awesome things. The next day was super jam-packed. We had quite a few stops planned, and you can see we kind of start up there a little bit inland and then come down towards the coast. And we did about 3 hours of driving that day. And we started off at these falls. These falls were a hike. They were 100% worth it, but it was a long way to get to these falls. I think it took us about an hour and a half to hike out to these falls. But as you can see, they're just absolutely worth it. And having the drone there was so, so cool to be able to get these overhead shots. There's a cute one of me kissing Josh on the cheek. But these falls were so cool to see from over top. And then we stopped off at this really awesome restaurant that everything was tomato based. They made, even the beer was tomato based, and they had this amazing tomato soup. They had all kinds of things. This was really cool. This was up at a lighthouse and you can see some puffins, and it kind of was close to this black beach. And this was the first time I'd ever seen a black beach before. They have them in Hawaii, but I'd never been to Hawaii, so it was really cool to see these black beaches. And there's these really interesting basalt formations here that are almost like tubes, so they're really cool.
Okay, so day two, we covered a ton of ground and drove a lot. But one of the things is we actually, since we were gonna go super far east and then come back again, there's a few things we skipped on the way east that we saw on the way back, where some people might have seen, you know, close to where we were. Yes. So you'll see those later in the trip, but we had covered so much ground. It was so cool.
We were tired.
And I mean, we hiked up to that hill where the lighthouse was and the view was just incredible. Great. But it keeps getting better. So now we're gonna show you what we did on day three. On day three, we actually woke up in Vik and then we immediately started out to do a hike on the glacier, which was amazing. I have never done this before and it was so much work, but it's also one of the few glaciers where you can actually fly a drone. So we did a whole hike up and around the glacier, and then I actually flew the drone around afterwards. We took a break and had some lunch there in the parking lot, went back, flew the drone around. It was amazing, but the hike up the glacier was just incredible. It was hours. So this is something that took a ton of time, but it was very worth it. Then we went to these lava fields that you can't really walk around because it's all protected, but I was able to park and fly the drone around to be able to see just kind of the vastness of this. And I mean, as you can see the road here, as you're driving around Iceland, you just see so much amazing stuff. I mean, even when you're in the road for like an hour, you're just like seeing incredible things. But our last stop of the day was this cool canyon with the river going through. We also walked up to the top and saw it from the top. And then again, we were blessed with an amazing view, which, what, another waterfall. Look at that, a waterfall.
So day 3 was super packed. I really love those lava fields. I thought those were so unique. I'd never seen anything like that before, but I was going to be super excited on day 4 because we saw some really awesome landscapes. Day 4 was another jam-packed day of driving. There were lots of things that we wanted to see just all along the way. Did another about 3 hours of driving, and look, it's another waterfall. This was one of the coolest waterfalls. Just these basalt formations were so neat and so unique. We spent a ton of time here at this waterfall, just kind of relaxing. This was a really cool place. We kind of saw this off the side of the road and we decided to stop and just pop the drone up and see what we could see and see this glacier, and it was super cool. Just these kind of watery fields, looking out on this glacier. But then we got to go to the super famous Diamond Beach, which everybody goes to. You have to go and see these icebergs washing up on this black sand. It's super cool. We got tons of really awesome photos from that. I think you can just go anywhere there and get an amazing photo. But we finished up the day at this really awesome restaurant and had these langoustines that are super famous.
So we had that amazing langoustine dinner that was so cool.
So good.
And that's the furthest east that we got, actually. And on that night, we stayed in a hotel, which was one of the few hotels that we actually stayed in.
And it felt weird.
Yeah, it felt weird because we'd been sleeping in the camper van so much.
Yeah.
But it was nice to stay in a hotel. But afterwards, we then kind of jumped in the car and started heading back to where we started, and that's where we'll begin with day 5. Day 5 was a pretty big driving day, but one of the highlights is right next to Diamond Beach was this glacier that you can take a glacier tour onto the kind of the mouth of the glacier, and that was amazing. This was so cool. So we went out on a boat, spent a couple hours exploring up close to the glacier, getting to see the big broken pieces that eventually worked themselves like out to Diamond Beach and what becomes the ice on Diamond Beach. Super amazing. But then we, you know, after this, of course, we did our normal lunch in the parking lot and relaxed a little bit. I think we might have changed clothes because we were at it, but then went in and found another waterfall. This was a bit secluded, and we were kind of on our own, so we walked around, and then we were able to fly the drone a ton. We got in front of the waterfall, we got behind the waterfall. I mean, we were there at a point where there weren't that many people, so we were able to do tons of stuff, basically just the two of us, when we'd go to these waterfalls. I mean, it was spectacular. So we'd spend so much time just kind of taking it in, and if we could fly the drone, we would, so we can see it from different angles. Amazing day. I mean, we had so much fun.
So I thought that day 5 was really fun. There was a bird there at that fall that really did not like the drone. He hated that drone. He kept trying to get to it. And I also got this super crazy picture because there was a white horse there, and then I did a double take and there was a black horse and you almost couldn't see it. So it was pretty crazy, but that whole day was really cool. Day 6 though, waterfalls.
Oh, we saw waterfalls.
More waterfalls.
Oh my goodness, waterfalls.
So many. So here we are at day 6. We only had about two hours of driving to do this day, but it took us all day because we kept stopping at all these waterfalls that we saw. We started out at the super famous Skógafoss. These are huge waterfall, just really loud, everything you want from a waterfall. And then we stopped by this beautiful other waterfall where we walked up behind it. And that's where things really kind of started going downhill because we were wet basically the entire day. After this, we kept going up to the waterfalls behind them. There was one, this one is actually in a cave. And we spent a ton of time trying to get awesome photos here, some nice footage. And this is actually up a little bit further. It's in a national park and it was super cool to walk by. The whole park itself was really beautiful. And it was really relaxing just to sit here and watch this waterfall go by.
So it was a bit of a drive to get the national park there, and it was super cool. But I don't know if you remember this, but after we went to the waterfall, we started walking around a bit, and there was this cool little church.
Oh, yeah.
But there were like ridiculous amounts of like mosquitoes and bugs midges. And whatever. It was just super difficult to just be outside. So, and we were sweating from doing all this walking around these waterfalls, and so we made the most of it, but we actually like kind of wanted to get inside as much as we can. And another thing is that campsite that we stayed at the national park, it was the windiest night that we had.
Oh, that was crazy.
All night we could feel the van shaking from the wind. It was crazy. We couldn't sleep. It was insane. And then at one point we looked out and there was this guy who'd ridden a bike and was camping in a tent.
Poor soul.
The next morning, he was like struggling to put the tent together without it like flying away on him because it was so windy. So we were happy to pack up and start driving. And when we drove, well, then we started looking at the next day, which was day 6. I think we're on day 6 at this point, right? No, day 7.
No, 7.
My goodness.
We lost a day.
It's the waterfalls. The waterfalls. Day 7. Day 7 was basically the most driving we did because we really wanted to go up northwest and check out some cool, guess what, waterfalls. 4.5 hours of driving that day. We put a ton of miles, but we kind of drive sometimes and just see something like this and stop and look at it because it was just ridiculous. In every direction you'd see waterfalls. But this is one that I really wanted to go and make sure that we saw. So this is the main reason why we went out west. But this is really close to the national park that takes you to another glacier. So we got out and kind of walked around. It was super cool and windy. But then we got to see this glacier from a distance, which was absolutely beautiful. I mean, it's just one of the most beautiful places. It's crazy everywhere you go. And there weren't that many people. We were super fortunate. But we ended up camping right here as we started heading back to Reykjavik. And it was a really cool place, of course, to fly the drone. It's probably my favorite drone footage of the whole trip because it just had such a unique little island with this bridge. So and there was another guy next to me, actually standing next to me flying his drone, and we're sitting flying drones together looking for places to see and look at. I mean, it was a nice day. It wasn't too windy, so we got to get some good drone footage.
So I have to say, day 7, I was exhausted. I was just kind of done. I was like on my last leg holding the tripod at some point at one of those waterfalls. It was so beautiful and I'm glad that we went, but I was definitely worn out by the time we got there. Which was fine because the next day we had some nice respite, some glamorous places to go to. So let's take a look at day 8. So day 8, we had a long drive. We had to get all the way back down to Reykjavik. But first we made a stop at the place that all tourists have to go, and that's the Blue Lagoon. I basically dragged Josh here, but you know what? We needed a spa day. We had deserved it. And so we went there, had a great time, and we followed that up with stopping off at Brewdog, of course, for some beer because we love beer. That red beer in the back was amazing. And then we really just walked around Reykjavik, and it was really cool. I loved the cathedral. I thought that was so neat looking. It looks like something out of Lord of the Rings. It's really awesome. And so it was just a nice kind of relaxing day to end the trip in Reykjavik there.
Okay, that was our last full day. And actually, I have an Icelandic friend, Birger, who was in Reykjavik at the time. I didn't realize he'd be there. And so he met us at the Brewdog. And it was cool. And it's actually his sister and a bunch of his friends came. And it was super nice to kind of end the trip with some people, chatting it up, connecting with folks, and just ending up a great day.
It was a fabulous trip.
Yeah, and we actually stayed at a hotel the last night close to the airport because our flight was super early in the morning. And I'm desperate to go back again. Yeah. I had such an amazing time. I mean, I took a ton of pictures, which will be on our Instagram. I put a bunch early when I first started posting to Instagram, so scroll down. I took a lot of pictures, which is why there's more pictures than video because we hadn't done the channel yet. And I have a ton of pictures because I was focused so much on that. And I think there's one video that you see me. I set up a tripod and walked in front of the camera for a moment.
That's early on.
Proof that I was there in one of those early days, but it was such a good trip. But any questions or anything about Iceland, I'm happy. I'm gonna have links to all the Google Maps of where we drove, so you can see all the places we went to in the description, along with a breakdown of the names of all the places that we went to, because I did a ton of research to plan this trip out. and it was just so much fun. I'm happy to share that because I would do the exact same things again.
Yeah, I don't think we would change much about that trip.
All I would change is more time in Iceland. That's the only thing I'd change. Going around the whole ring road would have been neat, but we had to stop at some point to get back.
I did really want to go to the glacier where they filmed Interstellar. I couldn't quite convince you to go to that one. It was just like one more glacier.
And it's like, you know, something like that's another 4 hours or something. It's really hard to fit it all in when you have a lot of driving to do.
But reason to go back.
Yeah. But today is Friday, so before we end the video, we have to give a little bit of a Friday fact.
Yes.
And we wanted to share this painting, which is usually over here and sometimes in the background on top of my record player. And it's a painting from one of our, early on we did a video where we talked about some of our favorite musicians, and we mentioned Andrew Combs in that video. But he also is a painter, and we bought this painting from him.
It's called From a Cave.
Yeah, and he does super amazing guy.
I love his stuff.
Yeah. We actually, it's funny because I was in Denmark when I ordered. He lives in Nashville, and he was putting some stuff for sale. So I bought it from him, sent the money on Venmo and stuff, and chatted with him, and said, "Hey, can you just hold it? Because I'll be in Nashville at some point in the next 6." This is before the pandemic, and so he kept it in his kitchen. I told him, I said, you should put a little sign under it that says like on loan from Joshua Young, like it does in museums. And then I was in Nashville like 4 or 5 months later, and then he came over to my friend's house to bring it. And he's just a super fantastic guy. I'll have a link to his music below, because besides being an amazing person and a good artist, he's also a good musical artist, and honestly one of my favorite songwriters.
Yeah, but I have trouble because I love his art so much, so I'm always like, oh, I need more of Andrew's art. He's got a great style, and I'm always disappointed that he's in the U.S. and I can't buy his stuff.
It's actually funny, I don't know if you remember, but we bought, he was selling some clothes, and we bought a bunch of clothes.
Oh yeah, we did.
And
they're waiting for us.
And we had he took it to our friend's house, who lives in Nashville, and so eventually.
We'll get them.
It's the Maya wants them, so at some point we'll pick them up and get to Nashville again. But fantastic, and this you can see it in the background of like a Påskebrew episode when we had the camera facing in that direction. You'll see it sometimes in the background. So this is an Andrew Combs painting, one of our favorite musicians, and that's today's Friday fact from the Youngs.
Yep.
Then that is it. So I hope you enjoyed Iceland. We absolutely did, and if you haven't gone, you need to go for sure. Super easy from Denmark to get to. We actually met a ton of Danes there because it seemed like that was one of the main places Danes went to last summer because of the pandemic, and it was pretty easy. Like I think we had actually just get tested when we landed at the airport, and then we were negative, and then we were good to go. Yeah. And it was pretty easy from Denmark. So, but thank you for joining us. And next Tuesday, I'm just going to tell you this. This is, I feel like people have been interested in this. We just released, we just got a new car, or well, we're getting it tomorrow, but by the time you see this, we will have gotten a new car. We turned in our old lease, got a new lease, so we've been waiting for the chance to put together an episode about cars in Denmark, and Tuesday is going to be that episode where we talk about cars.
Everybody's been asking for it.
Asking for stuff about cars, around cost of cars, comparing costs and everything. That is going to be Tuesday. I haven't finished it yet, but I've said it now, so I have to finish it.
Yes.
I have no way out because I've told you
he's committed.
That I'm committed to do this on Tuesday. So definitely stay tuned for the car video on Tuesday. Thank you so much. I hope you enjoyed this trip to Iceland. That's the last time we've been out of Denmark. And on a plane, we had a fantastic time. And there you go.
All right.
We'll see you later.
Bye.
Bye-bye.